Welcome to First Mover, your first global look at today's action in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset space. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Joining me are my co-hosts, CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Capital Markets, Lawrence Luton, and Executive Director of Global Content, Emily Parker. Good morning, Emily and Lawrence.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Let's take a look at some markets. Right now, the CoinDesk Bitcoin price XVX index currently at $43,409. Bitcoin is slightly down over 1%. And the CoinDesk Ether price ETX index is at 3,106. ETH is also retreating over 2% over the past 24 hours. The DFX CoinDesk DeFi index at 321, backtracking over 4%. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, just globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data. So we just have some consumer inflation data out. Is that what's perhaps attributing to this bit of a withdrawal, Lawrence?
Little sell-off, yeah, but you know what? Take a look at the one-week chart. We're 20% up. We gave back a little bit today. A couple, like 1,000 and change. As you know, before the numbers came out, I was telling you, I was like, I don't know, I think a few $100, but either way, and that's kind of what we got. This is the market's reaction is kind of like, the inflation is higher than expected, so rates might go up. They might accelerate tapering faster. So
yeah, so you would think Bitcoin would go up.
I don't really know what they. What's that?
You would think Bitcoin would go up, with high inflation.
Yeah, but then the idea is that there'd be some sort of reaction. To be honest, none of this makes sense. There are other fundamental things going on in the market. This doesn't make sense. But whatever,
Emily,
it's crypto.
Emily, what are you watching? There's some more confusion happening in Russia, or a clarification of the confusion. Which one?
Yeah, I would say it's some clarification of the confusion. There's been some analysts who are saying that potentially Russian news led to an increase in Bitcoin's price. I'm a little skeptical of that. But basically, there's been threats or rumors of a ban of cryptocurrency in Russia. There was, basically Russia was threatening to do that. Now it looks like Russia will actually be regulating cryptocurrency as opposing to banning it. So this is a positive sign. Whether or not it led to a jump in price is a very controversial opinion.
Interesting. Also, flow tokens are surging. Emily.
Oh, sorry?
Also, flow tokens are surging with these new Olympic Games.
Sorry, I just lost sound for a second. Yeah, so our next guest will be on talking about the Beijing Olympics. Sports in many ways are the gateway drug to the crypto world. We have, NFTs, all sorts of athletes issuing NFTs. We have the Super Bowl, we have the Beijing Olympics. So joining us now is Matthieu Jobbé-Duval, head of financial products at Dapper Labs, the NFT company behind the Flow blockchain, NBA Top Shot, CryptoKitties, and more. Welcome, Matthieu.
Hi, guys.
Looks really warm there, too. Wonderful.
So let's just start out with, can you explain what is happening? You are doing something with the Beijing Olympics, which are happening right now. It seems to be quite successful. Can you just give us a little brief intro into what that project is?
Yeah, it's one of the multiple dApps building on Flow called Enway, who has a partnership with the Olympic Games, and they have a lot of things on the roadmap. In terms of NFT universes and interactions with users and fans of the Olympics. I don't want to say too much because a lot of that is going to be a surprise, and we both really will transform the relationship that users and fans will have with the Olympics going forward, just like what NBA Top Shot did a little more than a year ago with NBA fans. So yeah, stay tuned and follow what's going on the page that we're streaming here.
So recently, Flow tokens have seen quite a surge in price, even if it's significantly off of its all-time high. What do you attribute that surge to? What do you think is the main reason for it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Flow has a very interesting problem when it comes to the major top layer 1 tokens out there. There is a lot happening on the blockchain. Of course, everybody knows NBA Top Shot, everybody knows CryptoKitties, but NFL all day, UFC, the new cricket NFT universe that was launched a couple of weeks ago, and so many thousands of other dApps that are being built either in stealth or about to be live on the blockchain. All of these things really are starting to be noticed by the market, and the market realizes that actually there isn't, it's not just an NFT blockchain. This is a blockchain that is been purpose-built to support mainstream dApps. Indeed, we think that the adoption is significant. We have more than 3 million wallets today on Flow, with really only a handful of dApps that have existed in 2021. So we are very, very excited with all the things that are coming live on the blockchain these days. I think that's being reflected in the price. And it also might be pricing in the recent announcement that we made that we created, Wrap Flow is being launched on Ethereum. So just like for Bitcoin and Wrap Bitcoin 2 years ago, made by BitGo, we are doing the same thing through Anchorage to create a representation of the Flow token on the Ethereum blockchain.
So, Matthieu, I want to ask you about Wrap Flow in a second, but I do want to ask this about sort of the demand for sports-related NFTs given viewership. The Olympics in the United States, at least, the Winter Olympics haven't had the kind of ratings that previous Winter Olympics have had. Do you think that the viewership affects price, even though it's been successful for you? Do you think it could have been better had there been more enthusiasm in the United States for viewership here?
That's a very interesting question. I think the relationship between NFT and the power that they bring to engagement for these mega brands, whether it is Olympics, NBA, or NFL, I think that all of these franchises are looking for the way to touch a new customer base, which might be Gen Z, which might be people in their late teens, early 20s, who just have a different kind of experience with media. If the Olympics, for example, don't have a great presence on apps such as TikTok and Instagram, maybe they struggle to touch those crowds. So really for them, for the Olympics and for these other massive franchises, NFTs might be a way to touch that population and to make them really interact with the sport that they love in a different way. So I think the viewership today is a bit early to say because the Olympics just started a few days ago, and indeed it is slow, and I think it's going to be an interesting social experiment because it's the first Olympic happening in such a environment. But we do believe that the NFTs will be hopefully a way for people to interact it deeper and in a more let's say engaging way with the Olympics in the future.
So you mentioned the Wrap Flow it being available now. It hasn't traded yet on the likes of Uniswap. We're still waiting for that. When it begins, first of all, when do you think they'll start trading? And what are your expectations? What exactly do you think will happen? What does it mean for you guys?
For sure. So Flow, USDC, and Flow ETH pools were deployed yesterday. Actually, only Flow ETH was deployed yesterday. We are going live with marketing this morning. So the assets are there. The pools are there is about $2 million worth of assets on each side. Today, this is supported by the community. And so what we really expect here is we just want Flow to be accessible by more users on more chains. It's about interoperability. Flow users today need to be able to use those assets, port it to the Ethereum blockchain, and interact with a very vibrant DeFi ecosystem that we all know and love. There is, of course, a lot of DeFi dApps being built on Flow today, nowhere close to what Ethereum has. Ethereum has the benefit of time. It's been around for many years. Flow has only been live a little more than a year. So we thought it was important to not only give our users the ability to use their Flow to maybe take out loans on lending protocols and not have to sell their Flow to get value out of it, but also bring users who are not familiar with Flow from the Ethereum ecosystem onto Flow so that then they can interact with the great dApps that have been built for many months now.
So we've been talking about this kind of merging of cryptocurrency and sports. And obviously we have a very big event coming up soon, which is the Super Bowl. And we're going to see a lot of crypto activity related to the Super Bowl, from ads to potentially giving out Bitcoin. I'm just curious to what do you expect to see in the Super Bowl? Anything notable from your end?
This is really phenomenal, I think, for the industry as a whole, regardless of NBA, and NFL all day and the different things that we will bring to light during this weekend that I cannot talk about. It's a really watershed moment for crypto. Let's remember that only 2 years ago, most people around us, around the dinner table, around our friends group, whereas, well, crypto, is it a scam? Is it not a scam? Is it a Ponzi? Is it not a Ponzi? You should never have made that career choice. God knows, probably you heard that. I certainly heard that. And now it's going to be prime time Super Bowl. It's going to be the arena is called with a major crypto company. Multiple sponsorship deals, too many of them to talk about. Tom Brady, massive household names who are really embracing the technology and the industry as a whole. And so I think beyond, what that means for Dapper Labs and the Flow blockchain, it's really a moment that we can all be proud of because we crossed the threshold. And it is a time to reflect and to be happy about that because I don't think we're ever going to go back to what the narrative was before.
All right, well, looking forward to the Super Bowl, Matthieu. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate your insights. That was Dapper Labs Head of Financial Products, Matthieu Jobbé-Duval. Coming up, a markets update with crypto trader, the Wolf of All Street, Scott Melker.
Hey, I'm Isaiah Jackson, host of Community Crypto and author of Bitcoin in Black America. You're watching CoinDesk TV?
The Crypto Markets Update is brought to you by KuCoin, the best place to find the next crypto gem. Checking in on Bitcoin, the CoinDesk Bitcoin price XTX index currently at $43,397 right now. Bitcoin sliding slightly about 1.4%. The CoinDesk ETX index right now at 3,107. ETH also sliding back about 2.4% over the past 24 hours. The CoinDesk DFX, CoinDesk DeFi index right now at 319, retreating about 4.6%. Joining us now to discuss the crypto markets, Lawrence, who's our next guest?
Oh, yeah. So we had some big moves over the past hour, and we had some even bigger moves over the past week. So joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is Scott Melker. He has nearly 800,000 Twitter followers, and he's known as the Wolf of All Streets, and he's the host of the Wolf of All Streets podcast. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you so much for having me. Things have certainly changed since I got the call about an hour ago, right?
Yeah. So come on, what are you seeing over the past hour? Not only that, but over the past week, as I mentioned before, there were some big moves. What's your take on what's going on right now?
It's my opinion that the bottom is likely in, although obviously there's no certainty when trading markets. But I think we saw a lot of signals in the last week, 10 days, 2 weeks, even just emotionally among the community, the language that we were seeing, the sentiment, and that it was likely starting to bottom. I loved last week's weekly candle. If you're looking at it, technically broke through a few key levels. And now I think we're trying to find our footing and decide on the next move. Of course, the irrational reaction to inflation data is humorous at best. Right? Bitcoin is known as a great inflation hedge. And then every time that they admit that inflation is a problem, Bitcoin drops, right? Because then there's the fear that the Fed is going to become more hawkish, deal with inflation. And then, of course, assets like Bitcoin could theoretically drop. It's a big dog and pony show, frankly. And I think that when we realize that inflation is indeed out of control, that's a good thing for Bitcoin.
What's interesting is that we don't see we kind of see these short moves, these short bursts of it, but it doesn't last too long. And, I kind of want to step back for a second here. We had some potential news coming out that, and that was broken on CoinDesk, that BlackRock might be offering crypto trading on Aladdin and support for trading on Aladdin, which for fund managers, for asset managers, this is kind of a big thing. Yet we didn't see any kind of reaction from the markets, and there's kind of not been that kind of chatter other than from hedge fund managers. I texted me saying, hey, wow, this is big. So what exactly is going on? Is there a disconnect, or are we who are kind of used to the institutional aspect of crypto trading, are we kind of like out of touch with reality?
I don't think we're out of touch. I think that now good news has become sort of part of the narrative, and it's expected, and a mature market doesn't react in the same way that it used to when you get that good news. If it was 2017 and you even saw the mention of Bitcoin in a mainstream publication, price would move 15%, right? And now, as you touched on, we just had KPMG add both Bitcoin and Ethereum to their balance sheet. This is a big four accounting firm. Absolutely huge news. BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world with 10 trillion assets under management, now talking about offering Bitcoin and crypto services to their clients. And we just now say, hey, it's Thursday morning, right? Just another day in the market, another institutional adoption. And I think we know that, the fire is under everyone's feet now. If you're not in, you're certainly under pressure if you're at one of these companies to at least have an understanding or a plan for crypto. And even a year ago, I actually think that was a far-fetched idea. To think about where we've come since the lows in 2020, it's really astounding.
So in terms of direction, short term, at least in the next 3 months compared to the next 6 months, where do you see the crypto markets heading?
Up, up, and up, right? I don't really have fears of a crypto winter. I think that it's hyperbolic. I think that people have PTSD about every single time that price drops because we get new entrants who aren't familiar with the volatility of this market. People have the memories of goldfish. They forget that last May, just 8 months ago, price went from 60 to 30,000 in 10 days. Right? And now we act like we've never been here before when we see the standard 55% drawdown, which is classic in this market. If you look at any of the metrics outside of our human emotions and the need to not lose money and be wrong, everything points to up. Everything. We saw $30 billion of venture capital pouring into the crypto space just last year, and have probably seen another 10 billion just in January, right? All of the money is invested in this space. Everybody's trying to come up with a plan. Whether that means they buy Bitcoin on their balance sheet, maybe not. Maybe it means venture capital and Web3 and taking the picks and shovels approach, investing in exchanges, investing in platforms. But the sheer amount of money and interest that's coming into this space does not point to 3 years of winter.
Scott, I just want to return to the inflation question for a moment, because as you rightly pointed out, everyone's always talking about Bitcoin as being this inflation hedge, but then inflation numbers come out and, Bitcoin doesn't act the way it's supposed to. And also, this hypothesis hasn't even really been tested, at least in the United States, right? In the United States, for basically the entire span of Bitcoin's lifetime, has had very low inflation, or negligible inflation. And now, finally we're seeing real inflation, and Bitcoin is just not reacting the way that people expect. So, is this whole narrative of Bitcoin as an inflation hedge? Is there any there to it? I mean, we have no evidence really, at least here in the US, that this is a thing.
I agree that as of right now, we don't have evidence. The price of Bitcoin is roughly the same as it was a year ago, but it's a nascent inflation hedge. The concept is really what matters. It is a proven deflationary asset. We know exactly how many Bitcoin will be, when they will hit, how many Bitcoin will be mined, when they will hit the market. So it will act as an inflation hedge. I think that the problem is that people can't judge an inflation hedge in an hour, right? And I went on Fox Business. I've had this conversation before. If price drops over an hour because humans have an emotional reaction, that does not prove that something is not an inflation hedge. Call me in 10 years and we'll see if Bitcoin is up as an inflation hedge. So I think you have to take a much longer zoomed out view to approach it. And if you look back to March 2020, when Bitcoin bottomed and the stock market bottomed, right? We had Bitcoin under 4,000. The stock market has doubled since we've seen that period of historic money printing, right? Everybody knows the meme. 40% of all money ever printed has been printed in the last 18 months, right? We all know that. Bitcoin went up 17 times from the bottom, 3,800 to about 69,000. The stock market doubled. So if you zoom out and look at when the problem started, when inflation started to become an issue, Bitcoin has performed exceptionally well. It's still up over 10 times since then.
Scott, I kind of want to get back to this whole idea of an inflation hedge, but being on the balance sheet, because this is something that has come up over the past year with MicroStrategy putting Bitcoin on its balance sheet instead of returning the cash to shareholders and letting them decide how much they want to allocate to Bitcoin. Do you think that the MicroStrategy experience, where the stock has languished, if not fallen a little bit since this whole thing started, do you think that might spook other companies from taking on that on their balance sheet, or maybe causing them to say, you know what, this strategy of MicroStrategy is not exactly a great idea. We should be paying back shareholders with dividends. We should be paying back shareholders the cash if we can't find better use for it than either investing it in the company or what have you.
I think there's quite a bit to parse there, right? The notion that MicroStrategy has dropped because of its Bitcoin investment is a false narrative, right? The price of MicroStrategy was around $115, $120. It's multiple times that now, even after seeing that pump all the way to over 1,000. We're talking about a business software company that was growing at a 5 to 6% rate. It was a great company, but certainly wasn't seeing, 6, 7, 10x growth. So I think that narrative is false. I think MicroStrategy has done exceptionally well. Also, I mean, they offered people a buyout at a premium who were not on board with the Bitcoin narrative. I've talked to Michael Saylor about this on my podcast. His claim is basically that anyone who's still there is on board with the Bitcoin narrative. So there's not angry shareholders anymore, right? They've had their chances to get out at a massive profit because of this.
Speaking of entities, large entities holding large sums of Bitcoin, the U.S. government, the Department of Justice now has seized $3.6 billion worth of Bitcoin. And I wonder, what do you think the impact on price could be? Because now the government is holding it. If they ended up returning it and selling it off, it could have some downward pressure on the price. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, we see multiple billion-dollar volume on individual exchanges in a day in the market now. We're talking about a $2 trillion market. I think that $3.6 billion is a drop in the bucket, so that's not a concern. I also think the sort of concept, although it was championed by Saylor, who I love, that the United States still now has Bitcoin on the balance sheet is a bit nonsensical and kind of just a joke. Right. Obviously, it's not theirs. They seized it. They will probably return it to Bitfinex. By the way, this would turn out to be the greatest trade in Bitfinex history, right? They were hacked for effectively $70 million, paid that back over time, which effectively seems like a loan, and now will likely get a full reimbursement of $3.6 billion at the end of that transaction. We always like to joke that the best thing you can do with your Bitcoin is probably either die and hand it to your kids or just forget that it exists or get locked out of your fund, because the longer you take to get it back, the better it will perform, and that seems to be the case here. But I don't think that this will have any discernible effect on the market. If anything, the narrative to me surrounding this is that Bitcoin is really, really a crappy asset for criminals, right? And that every time criminals seem to try to use Bitcoin, either they get caught, or they don't get caught but never are able to use or access those funds or cash them out, right? And so I think that this definitely puts one more major nail in the coffin of the Bitcoin is only for criminals argument.
All right, Scott Melker, thanks so much for joining us. That was the Wolf of All Streets and crypto trader. Coming up, meet the buyer of an over $3 million Bored Ape NFT, and checking in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor, Nick Day.
Hi, I'm Christine Lee.
Zach Seward.
I'm Michael Casey.
I'm Christy Harkin.
I'm Isaiah Jackson.
I'm Serena Lynn.
Hey, this is Will Foxley.
I'm Teresa Santos.
Hi, I'm Lawrence Lewitton.
Hi, I'm Dorian Wayne.
I'm Nicholas Day.
Hi, I'm Kevin Worth.
My name is Naomi Brockwell.
I'm Jordan Muthra.
Hi, I'm Galen Moore.
Hi, I'm Brad Count.
I'm Pete Paschal.
Hi, I'm Jen Sanasi. You're watching.
And you are watching.
And you're watching CoinDesk TV.
Welcome back. Time to check in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day, who's also the editor of CoinDesk's State of Crypto newsletter. Good morning, Nick. So the CFTC wants more authority. Tell us what's going on.
Good morning. So yesterday the Senate Agriculture Committee held a hearing on digital asset regulation. CFTC Chairman Rustin Benham was one of the witnesses. They also had a panel later, which included FTX's Sam Bankman-Fried, Sandra Rowe, a couple others. And, it was a pretty substantial discussion about which agency in the U.S. should act as, the kind of the primary federal regulator for crypto, which crypto spot markets generally are not regulated at the federal level right now. It's largely state level regulations with federal regulators looking at either derivatives, in the CFTC's case, fraud in the spot markets, again, the CFTC, or securities issues, which is the SEC. And CFTC Chair Benham went to, he said in the past that he believes the CFTC has the ability to be the primary, spot market regulator at the federal level. He made his case again before Congress yesterday. He asked for more resources to do so. He said that the agency would have to build up some of its expertise in certain issues, including cybersecurity, for example, to be able to do this effectively, but he believes his agency can do it.
So, Nick, we haven't heard yet from the SEC regarding this. Do we think that the SEC is maybe even going to cede some of its control? It kind of sounds off, not off-brand, if you will. But do we think that maybe perhaps the SEC might say, you know what, the heck with it, let the CFTC deal with it. This is too much of a headache.
So we haven't heard any response from the SEC about, this specifically. But SEC Chair Gary Gensler, who, anyone might remember that in the past he was, a previous CFTC chair as well. But Gensler, in his capacity as running the SEC, has said that he believes the SEC should have more authority to oversee crypto. Specifically, he's making the argument that a lot of crypto exchanges list tokens that are securities, and therefore they should report to the SEC and abide by the same kind of reporting and disclosure requirements that current stock trading exchanges might have to deal with. So I think that's kind of the lens by which the SEC is viewing this. It's a little bit of a tug of war, really. Mm-hmm. The CFTC's argument is that the primary volume on exchanges is commodities and Bitcoin and Ether. SEC says that the vast majority of the number of cryptocurrencies are securities, and it's up in the air right now how Congress is going to really delineate these lines, or even if they will.
Yeah, interesting to see that tug of war play out. All right, Nick, thanks for the update. That was CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Policy and Regulation, Nick Day. Don't forget to sign up for the State of Crypto newsletter on CoinDesk.com.
The CoinDesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
Let's look at some metaverse headlines. So global investment company KKR is in talks to join Animoca Brands' latest financing effort, taking its funding round from to about $500 million latest, according to Bloomberg. Meanwhile, Zynga, the mobile gaming giant behind Facebook's Farmville, is readying the launch of its first NFT games of 2022. Investment in the NFT space is hotter than ever, and our next guest should know he bought a Bored Ape NFT for $3.4 million. Joining us now is Brandon Buchanan, founder and managing partner investment firm Metaphor Capital. Hey there, Brandon. So I got to off the bat ask you, why did you buy a Bored Ape for a ridiculous sum of money?
Well, we purchased the ape in the Sotheby's Metaverse auction. So, we had been plotting on getting a Bored Ape probably since the collection started to take off. I mean, our Collection Zero fund had actually purchased one near the mint time. So, we've been following it for a while. And, we connected with Michael at the co-head of digital at Sotheby's, and, we just had to have it. So that one, when you think of the provenance of that particular ape, it was owned by Jimmy Eat. And so that also added a little bit of lore to it.
Okay. So I understand there's the historical, the cultural element. Moving on to just the activity in the metaverse space is so hot, and Facebook or Meta wants to get into it as well. They saw their earnings slide, however, though, because they've been, stagnant in terms of user growth. But I wonder, where do you see this space headed, especially in this year?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think other players in the space, we see NFTs now with art, collectibles, and I think a lot of folks are kind of in a tizzy about some of the speculative nature of some of the NFTs. So there's a mad rush to participate in some of the whitelists, to be on the Discord, to do some of the early drops for the NFTs with the hope of getting some multiple return. But I think reality for folks that are building in the space is that we see NFTs an important paradigm shift for the internet. One, kind of re-architecting how this whole thing sort of looks, how the economics play out for the end user and the consumer, but then secondarily, how do we unbundle and unlock value for people who are actually participating, whether you're playing a video game, whether you're going to an event, whether you're collecting arts and collectibles. What does that whole shift look like? And I think NFTs are going to be the thing that powers that. And all indications, when you say that the market is hot, I mean, really what you're talking about is the consumer adoption of NFTs, right? We have this new, we have these new users that are being onboarded every day. And I think, folks probably would have anticipated as ETH and other cryptocurrencies, dropped or are sort of trading sideways, that NFTs would have dropped as well. But we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that trend because I think you have folks who are sort of agnostic to what the actual cryptocurrency prices are doing and looking at the NFTs themselves. So, taking all that in total, I mean, I think where this goes, I think sort of sky's the limit. But it is going to take a lot of building, a lot of work. NFTs seem to be operating at the nexus of, culture, tech, finance, law. I mean, some of the debates that we're having online, I'm trying to familiarize myself with IP law, I'm trying to get smart on that. So anyways, I think we're I think it's the best place to be right now if you're anyone interested in tech and finance.
I'm glad to hear you paid $3.2 million for a Bored Ape, because my wife calls me a lazy Neanderthal, so I must be worth like a couple of $1 million at least. So historical NFTs, that getting back to this whole idea that there's some value in these first generation NFTs. What do you think is driving that interest? Why all of a sudden we're seeing this pop in enthusiasm for kind of these first generation things that no longer are being pumped out, obviously?
I think it's a function of a couple of things. So one, I think the catalyst, there was this big event, I guess, with the Crypto Skulls, which is a 2019 NFT. And, I think a lot of folks were able to do almost like an Easter egg hunt, where they were able to go look on OpenSea, they were able to look on LooksRare, and they were able to find, this NFT that was for sale for, 0.04 or 0.08 ETH. And for a lot of folks, that was their, first win in the NFT space, right? Like now, I don't know what the floor price is, but call it 1 or 2 ETH. You have people who made a significant multiple. And so I think that was a catalyst for people to kind of, look further back on the timeline. And, really when you think about value, particularly with these arts and collectibles, scarcity is a big driver of that. And so when you look at these earlier collections, historical NFTs, Namecoin NFTs, Bitcoin NFTs, Rare Pepes, and then even some of the earlier stuff like CryptoPunks in 2017, you have this sort of very scarcity there. There's only, a few dozen projects predating 2017. And then within those projects, you have a very finite amount of supply. So, there's a supply-demand mismatch there, where people who are interested in sort of these earlier projects, it's getting more and more difficult to get their hands on them. And obviously that's been our focus, and it's created a lot of competition, but which is a good thing. We're happy about that.
So stepping back, looking at the broader picture.
Emily, you're on mute.
Sorry. Just wanted to ask you a question about the Web3, which you're clearly at the heart of Web3 innovation. And as I'm sure you are aware, there's been a lot of controversy around Web3, some led by Jack Dorsey, right? And one of the controversies is that Web3 is being increasingly controlled by venture capital. It isn't really decentralized at all. And you're an interesting person to comment on this, because you do have significant VC backing by some of the very companies that Jack has, criticized directly. So I'm just curious what you think of this whole phenomenon. I mean, is Web3 really living up to its promise, or is it just kind of, recreating a lot of the old patterns?
Yeah, it's actually been surprising to me that there's been such a visceral reaction, I think, for people who are anti-Web3. And I don't know if they think this is just a repackaging of old things, but, to me, that speaks to folks who have not engaged or, bought NFTs, or kind of see what the long-term vision is. And, I think in many respects, people who are new to crypto through NFTs, these are their first interactions with smart contracts. These aren't people who were trading, DeFi coins and doing yield farming. These are people who appreciate the art, they're creators, they're collectors. These are their first times interacting with, an Ethereum smart contract. So to see that whole ecosystem play out, where you have basically a trustless system that is taking care of the transaction. You're on OpenSea, you're making a purchase. Effectively the NFT has been, custodied. And then when you make that, swap, it's almost like magic is happening, right? And so, when we look at, the world that we enter, how we're going to own digital content on the internet, how we're going to, compensate creators with a long tail of royalties, and a lot of other benefits that come with NFTs. I mean, I just, again, it's shocking to me that that so many people are anti-Web3, and maybe it's a semantics thing that we're having, like probably debating, the same side of the coin or something. Because I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Trust me, I get eviscerated on Twitter in my DMs from people who think that Web3 is a bunch of baloney and people pumping and dumping their NFTs and all kinds of other stuff. And I think they're just missing a bigger point here, which is NFTs are going to power the future of the digital economy, whether that's in different metaverses, whether that's in real life and how we transact with, mortgages and tickets and, in real life clubs. I mean, I just think it's a new frontier for us, and we're still figuring out as we go. I think you intimated something very important that, is the promise too big to deliver? And I guess time will tell on that, but I can certainly say that anecdotally, I'm speaking and seeing, the smartest people across so many different sectors come to this space, be interested in this space. And it's not just a phenomenon being driven by, celebrities and musicians. I mean, these are, really, really thoughtful folks. And, some of the funds, you mentioned like A16Z. I mean, these people are putting their, heart, soul, and pocketbooks behind trying to promote something that is very positive, net for all of us.
Oh, I thought, okay. Well, Brandon, thank you so much. I hear your passion. Really, I mean, the space is really exciting. So thanks for joining us and sharing some of your insights.
All right, thank you guys so much. Thanks for having me.
Metaphor
Hope to see you
Capital.
again.
Thank you.
Managing partner Brandon Buchanan. All right, let's head over to Crypto Twitter for our tweet of the day. Super Bowl Sunday is coming, and there's a lot of speculation. Some are calling it Crypto Bowl because of the amount of ads from crypto companies that are going to be spent over the weekend. And we've got Fraser Gunn speculating this year's Super Bowl ads are going to be the worst ever because that we've ever seen. All the brands going to do NFTs. Pepsi's going to have a vaxxer share a can with an anti-vaxxer in the metaverse. They're going to bring back Austin Powers to say, crypto's my bag, baby. Nobody wants this. All right. Anyone's guess what we might see this weekend?
Yeah. Oh, just turn off the TV.
That's it for First Mover. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, Emily, for joining me. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Meantime, check out The Hash at noon Eastern and All About Bitcoin at 3 o'clock. You're watching CoinDesk TV. Also, for the daily forecast to see what's happening in the Asia crypto markets.
Join thousands of NFT traders who already start their day on CryptoSlam.
Concerns over a crypto ban are fading fast in Russia today. Welcome to the Daily Forecast, February 10th, 2022. I'm Angie Lau, Editor-in-Chief of Forecast, covering all things blockchain. Well, Russia's central bank suggested a ban on crypto just last month, but now there's been a complete 180. We're going to take a look at that story and a whole lot more coming up. Let's get you up to speed from Asia to the world. Well, let's get going with some of the biggest stories coming out of Asia today. First up, China is taking the lead on creating NFT standards for the world. According to a Chinese state-owned news report, an NFT technical framework proposal led by tech giants Tencent Holdings, that also includes another giant, Ant Group, has been approved by a specialized agency of the United Nations. Now, the standard proposes technical and security requirements for digital collectibles on the blockchain. The phrase digital collectibles is used in China, by the way, to avoid references to NFTs, which state media have criticized over speculative nature of it. However, players in the NFT space don't have to do anything quite yet, as standards produced by the UN's International Telecommunication Union Study Group do not become mandatory until adopted by national laws. Question is, which nations will adopt them, if ever? Meanwhile, Pac-Man creator Japanese video gaming firm Bandai Namco is adding a new core competency to the metaverse. It's planning an intellectual property or IP metaverse. Using its array of games and content, the entertainment conglomerate is investing 15 billion yen, or around $130 million US, into the project. Namco says its metaverse aims to better connect fans with the company and its creations, which include the globally popular IPs Dark Souls, Dragon Ball, and yes, Pac-Man. The move follows fellow Japanese gaming giants Sega, Square Enix, and Konami, all recently expressing interest in or embarking on blockchain-led projects. Seems Asia cannot get enough of the metaverse right now. You can find those stories and more at forecast.news. Meanwhile, Russia has had a change of heart on crypto, shelving concerns over a blanket ban on crypto. The country's central government agencies have reached an agreement when it comes to regulating crypto. Forecast News' Timmy Shen has more.
The agreement reached by the Russian central government agencies mandates licenses for exchanges and taxes on large transactions. The document, which was signed off by the central bank and the finance ministry, states that crypto trading will be strictly regulated with a focus on investor protection. Russian business newspaper Kommersant reported that the government and the Bank of Russia are preparing a draft law classifying crypto as a form of currency rather than as digital financial assets by February 18th. Just last month, fears were raised after the Bank of Russia called cryptocurrency a pyramid scheme and recommended a comprehensive ban, but the finance ministry suggested regulation instead. This move has put those fears to rest, with the government saying the move to legitimize the circulation of crypto in its economy will minimize the threat to financial stability and reduce the use of crypto in illegal activities. For Forecast News, I'm Timmy Shan.
Crypto markets are back in risk-on mode as just about every currency among the top 10 by market cap has risen by double digits in the last week. Are we at the cusp of a trend reversal, or is this just a short-term pop for the new economy? In the hot seat once again, Michael Wu, CEO and founder of Amber Group, with all of the answers. Great to see you again, Michael.
Great to see you, Angie.
Okay, so Michael, is the sell-off of the last couple of months in digital currencies behind us? Do you think we have a base in place for major coins like Bitcoin, ETH, or Solana? What do you think?
I think the major paradigm shift this year is, of course, the rate hiking cycles, right? A lot of money printing will be reversed in short term. Now, this recovery is sort of a combination, in my opinion, of both, the strong fundamentals people continue to recognize with the crypto ecosystem itself, with, some post-reaction to, the fact that people already accept, okay, we already accept the Fed, or in the case of Bank of England, they already started hiking rates. So I think these two sides are still battling in terms of being drivers of the price action. So in the near term, I'm cautiously optimistic. I do think the last sell sort of found a good sort of support level for prices. For Bitcoin, it was somewhere around 30,000. For Ethereum, right below 2,000. But if we go back even below there in another sell-off, I won't be surprised. I think that would be a good opportunity to buy as well.
Yeah, that support level being at 30, and there's no doubt more volatility, but at least we know where everybody is seeing those levels at. Switching gears now, Reuters is reporting that North Korea is using cyber attacks, particularly on cryptocurrency assets, as a source of revenue to fund its missile program, and that's quite a disturbing development. I wonder how this impacts the market. What's your sense of it?
I actually think this has been happening for quite some time, and now Reuters is reporting it, so the mainstream market start to hear about it. But this is already a known fact. We know there are a lot of dedicated hacking groups out there. From specific countries, some more self-governed. I think we just gotta continue to handle the security both on-chain and in terms of organizational procedures as crypto companies better. There are also positive developments, such as the New York DOJ is reported to have seized the $3.6 billion of Bitcoin that was hacked from Bitfinex in 2016, and that will at least give the market some comfort that the law enforcement is working with the crypto native companies to eventually protect their interests, protect their assets with an additional layer of legal protections.
Absolutely. And finally, India appears to be pushing ahead with cryptocurrencies. The government imposed taxes on crypto assets in the recent budget, which appears to be kind of like a tacit legitimization of digital assets. Is this also a bright spot for the market?
A huge economy with 1.4 billion population, with a very young and digital native population as well, is recognizing the legitimacy of this crypto economy. I think that's tremendously positive. Of course, the Indian government will love to have some tax income from this large and becoming even larger industry. That's totally understandable. We've seen countries like Japan and Korea who are seen as pioneers in the crypto industry as governments already have either already have put out tax regimes or are rolling out tax regimes for crypto. So I think this is very respected decision. This is totally expected. If they are going to legitimize the industry, they're gonna tax it, right? So I think that's tremendously positive news for the industry and for us.
Second most populated country in the world, joining the new economy. Thanks so much, Michael. Always good to have you debriefing. And that's the Daily Forecast, bringing you the biggest stories from around Asia, Monday to Friday. For more, visit forecast.news. I'm Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Until the next time.